and under God.
Sarah, can you do roll call, please?
President Bucher,
Here.
Trustee Barheit, Trustee Brooks,
Here.
Trustee Polly,
Here.
Trustee Faber,
Here.
Trustee Hopkins,
Here.
and Trustee Gant.
Here.
Thank you.
Did we meet open meeting compliance?
Agendas were posted online and here at Village Hall on Friday, January 2nd.
Great. Trustees, do I have approval of the agenda sequence?
Yes.
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 I'd like to ask if Wesley Schroeder is here today. No? Okay, then we will leave it as is. All right, we'll go into public comments. Please address the board. There will be no back and forth discussions, and there is a 3-minute time limit. Mr. Woodkey, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. And I just want to remind everyone too to speak into the microphone so that everyone can hear.
James Woodkey, 22416 88th Street, Salem, Wisconsin. Two items that are on the agenda tonight, but I'm going to tie them together a little bit. With over by B and 50, the developer wants to drive, and my impression is the developer wants to use the existing roads in another subdivision there to go in and build the subdivision they're going to build. That just doesn't sound like a great plan. Kind of sounds like a developer is trying to take advantage of that roadway that is Village Road instead of using the entrance off of 50. Doesn't sound like a great way to be working with the village. And then tying that into the Brenner subdivision with the TID and TIF, and I know you guys are, working on that, and okay, that's a great plan. But I have not gotten an answer, which I only asked one. So, I'm not complaining about that part, but I don't know if in that subdivision, there's going to be gutters, curbs, and sidewalks. Because that's going to be a lot of people with a lot of vehicles in one area. And what they're going to be walking baby carriages out on the street with no curbs, no sidewalks, kids walking to school to catch the bus to go to school. That just sounds like a bad plan. I think that planning and zoning and the board should try and make sure that there is sidewalks, gutters, and curbs for the safety of the people, because they're going to be paying pretty good money to live there, and the roads are going to be almost time to repave them by the time it gets done, maybe. So, it needs to be taken care of. So hopefully you can do that, because I want to see the village, things work better for everywhere in the village.
Thank you. Gretchen, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi team, Happy New Year. My name is Gretchen Kuzis. I live at 28411 72nd Place. That would be in the Salem Hills subdivision. With regards to the proposed Berwick project adjacent to Salem Hills subdivision, I'd like to express that I don't really have any objections to the rezoning or the plan development itself. However, I do have significant concerns related to the volume and impact of construction traffic that is anticipated to be routed through the single existing entrance into our neighborhood. Given the scale of the project, it is reasonable to expect frequent use by heavy construction equipment and vehicles, including but not limited to bulldozers and loaders, paving equipment, dump trucks, cement trucks, material delivery vehicles, in addition to regular construction trucks. Routing this level of traffic through our neighborhood's sole access point raises serious safety concerns, particularly for our residents, children, and pedestrians. In addition to safety, I'm also concerned about the condition of the roadway itself. The entrance to the neighborhood and the road in front of my property are already showing signs of deterioration, and sustained heavy construction traffic will likely accelerate the degradation, potentially leading to costly repairs and long-term damage. With these concerns in mind, I respectfully ask that whether it would be feasible to establish a permanent access point, or at the very least, a temporary construction entrance directly from Highway 50, providing an alternate access for construction traffic. It would significantly reduce safety risks and help preserve the condition of the existing neighborhood roadway. Thank you for your time and consideration of this request. I appreciate your attention to the safety and well-being of the Salem Hills community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Anderson, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Mary Anderson. I live at 28418 72nd Place, Salem, Wisconsin. I agree with both of the lady and gentleman before me with their complaints or reasons for not having the subdivision built where it's at. I firmly do not want it there. This is the second time we've come and stated that to you all. I think that the least that can happen is that it has a permanent access, not through our subdivision. We all bought the homes there for a reason. The privacy, the small amount of homes that are there. And it's not a cheap housing development. And the roads are terrible right there right now. They need to be repaired. And it is going to cause a lot of problems to have all the construction coming through. We have quite a few children in the neighborhood. And I really feel that this is something that you all should reconsider. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Samantha Hopkins, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samantha Hopkins, and I'm a resident of 7003 284th Avenue. Good evening, Village Board. I want to begin by saying clearly we are not opposed to new homes, and we are not opposed to the Salem Hills addition. We value our community, and we understand that growth is a part of its future. What we're asking for is simple and reasonable, that any new development be designed with safe access, responsible planning, and true public benefit at its core. Concerns about this development are not new. They date back to 2009 when the former owner of 7103 284th Avenue raised issues about road placement near homes and private wells, drainage limitations, and increased flooding risk. Those same concerns remain unresolved today. On August 18th, 2025, my spouse Keith, our neighbors, and I spoke before the board and specifically emphasized that access to this development should come from Highway 50, not through an established residential neighborhood. At that meeting, the board questioned the developer regarding re-exploring Highway 50 access, consulting with the fire department about emergency access, and revisiting the entrance design. However, on December 17th, the planning and commission meeting, none of those directives were meaningfully addressed. Instead, the developer submitted a PUD rezoning request that would allow a 22-foot wide private driveway to serve as the sole access point for 11 homes, something that would not meet standard zoning and subdivision requirements without this rezoning. It has been suggested that this road was always planned. However, the existing home adjacent to this proposal was built 3 years before the Salem Hills addition was ever proposed. That road should have never been planned in that way that compromises an established residence, and using that argument now does not justify placing a substandard access through an existing neighborhood. A PUD is meant to provide a clear public benefit, improved safety, better design, environmental protection, and enhanced community value. This proposal does the opposite. It reduces setbacks that exist for a reason, primarily safety, to provide separation between homes, roads, wells, drainage, and emergency access. Reducing those setbacks increases risk to residents and emergency responders alike. The proposal also avoids Highway 50 access, shifts long-term maintenance to a private HOA, and seeks rezoning approval before emergency access and drainage issues are resolved. That is not a public benefit. It is cutting corners for convenience and cost. This is especially troubling when Highway 50 access has already approved for multiple nearby developments, including the Reserve, which is a similar neighborhood, Bristol Veterinary Service, Kenosha County Storage, and Dollar General. These examples show that Highway 50 access is feasible and appropriate. We are for this neighborhood, but only if it's done safely and responsibly. We respectfully ask that this rezoning be tabled. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Hopkins, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Keith Hopkins, resident of 7003 284th Ave, Salem, Wisconsin. Neighboring property to the new Salem Hills addition. From the past board and plan commission meeting, there are a few questions that have been left unanswered. First, I'd like to bring up the PUD requested by Bear during the plan commission. Bear was requesting the PUD to turn the proposed road into a private driveway, which will eliminate any setbacks that are already set into place. From my understanding, setbacks are there for a reason. My neighbor's home has their private well that will be within the setback code if the road is put into place. This PUD that eliminates the setbacks seems like it is being used as more of a convenience that puts the strain on existing residents. PUDs have to have clear public benefit for both the developer and community. At this time, it does not seem like it does. Problem 2. With the PUD in place, the road or private driveway would have to be shorter in width, and it leads to a dead-end cul-de-sac. Has emergency personnel viewed or gave any input to this topic? This leads to the access point off of Highway 50 instead. This was discussed that it was going to be looked into, and if so, what is the answer? Lastly, for my property with a private road, does this make my property landlocked, which would become a corner lot? What does this mean for our property? My backyard will no longer be a backyard and more of a side yard. The details matter, and we hope they do to you as much as they do to us. By collaborating openly and maintaining full transparency, we can come together to an agreement that benefits all involved. We're not opposed to growth, but it must be pursued responsibly and with respect for existing residents. We look forward to communicating in more detail in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin and Sarah, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board members. My name is Justin Samsel. I live at 7120 286th Avenue in the Salem Hills subdivision. Admittedly, I'm less prepared than most of my neighbors here tonight, but I would just begin by saying that my wife and I, who have lived and resided in that subdivision for the last 8 years, completely acknowledge and echo the sentiments that you've already heard. The neighborhood that we live in is safe, quiet, and somewhat reserved from the rest of the area. Over the last 2 years, we of course have seen everything continue to expand out to us, including a Dollar General. I can tell you, I think safely amongst my peers that I live around, nobody was really excited about that. This too is it's a part of growth. It's a part of where we live in the corridor. However, just like everybody else here has already said, the roads in our subdivision are already problematic and falling apart. We're talking about granting access for construction crews who, quite frankly, in many cases, don't have a lot of respect for that subdivision because they don't live there. Therefore, they're going to move on to the next job. I too would agree that Highway 50 access, if this moves forward, should be an absolute requirement and non-negotiable. My neighbors and I would respect the fact that you're our elected officials, and we would hope to see that we are properly represented here, much to the chagrin of some of the people that will now be living immediately around this extreme construction zone where My wife and I are on the opposite side of the subdivision, but it still impacts all of us. So I would just hope and request that you give this credence in proper hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. David Pepping, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board. David Pepping, 7119 286th Ave, Salem. Much of my sentiments just echo what my neighbors have already stated. You know, I have 3 boys. I've been in my house for 13 years now. And one of the greatest parts about it has been the ability to allow my sons, like I said, 3 boys, to go out and play. We don't have a park. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have public access, like a public area for them to play in at this moment. So a lot of times riding their bikes, rollerblading, just a walk is along these streets. We don't have streetlights. Like I mentioned, we don't have sidewalks. I really don't want to have to become more concerned about large construction trucks, large construction operators coming through my subdivision when I want to allow my boys to go outside and play without having to worry about them running into these concerns. So the only other note that I wanted to make was, to that point, one of the rezoning options was moving a PR1 zone, I think, in that new subdivision option, which is a park zone. They were hoping to rezone that to another residential property. I felt that might be a mistake, because I feel like with the expansion there, instead of having to go 2 to 5 miles to a park outside of our area, it would be nice to have a park type area, if that's part of that current zoning, to have our children, or even just everybody to go play, have public access instead of in the streets. So thank you. I appreciate the consideration, and I hope that you listen to myself and my neighbors. Thanks again.
Thank you. Pat Drager, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hey, I'm Pat Drager, and I live at 904 North Lakeview Drive in Silver Lake. I've been a resident of Silver Lake since 1973 and a resident of 904 Lakeview Drive since 2000. There's children up and down coming, back and forth, walking to school, waiting for the school bus, just playing, riding their bikes. If we have that subdivision back there, it's just going to impact our ability to keep our kids and grandkids and great grandkids safe. And that's the whole idea. We're not totally against houses being built, but we're already being flooded. Our roads need fixing. Why can't that be taken care of? We need that. I'm not as well prepared as some of the other people that were ahead of me, but I agree with everything that they said. That we need to fix other things and try to reroute this area, because with that road coming out, if it does come out, it's going to be right down the middle of our street. It's a dead end street to begin with. I just saw a car today going down. Didn't get couldn't get through the back end because it's a dead end street, but nobody sees the sign. So we're more concerned about the safety of our children and the roads in town. We need them to be fixed. And this putting another subdivision with who knows how many trucks and construction thing is going to be really impacting a lot of us for a long time. Not just for 1 or 2 things, but a lot of houses. So we need to stop this somehow or reroute it. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Tammy Witt, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Tammy Witt, 21912 Wilmont Road. I'm here on behalf of the Salem Orchard Plan. As I had stated in the previous meeting, they've been excellent neighbors. They have an excellent plan. They're only asking for rezoning of less than 2 acres of the 15 for smaller business. I think it's a great opportunity to bring people into the area, not just to go to their business, but to go to the other local businesses. Tourism is part of building up money for the community. which we need. I don't have a problem at all with them there. They've been great neighbors, as I stated. The only opposition last time was one family who all do not live on that road, just a couple of them. And I think they're just stuck in the past and want it to stay the same as it is. I would rather not have a subdivision in between our properties. I'd rather have a nice small family farm. I would love to see that go through and see how they expand and see the growth that they create. Maybe they'll bring in other businesses. That's all. I hope you go along with it. Have a good night.
Thank you. David on Wilmot Road. I can't read your last name. Sorry. Daniel, even worse, see? I'm just kidding. Can you spell your last name?
Yes, Langevin, Langevin.
Gevin.
Yeah.
Okay,
I went to a public school, sorry.
all right.
I'm
Please
Daniel
state your
Langevin.
name and address for the record, yeah.
I'm Daniel Langevin, 21912 Wilmot Road. I both live and own that property. We are immediately east of the Salem Orchard project, but their property. I've been there 10-ish years. Since before they began their project. I'm fully in favor of it. What limited knowledge I have of small local businesses and government, I think you want to attract small business. You want people to be invested in the businesses in the neighborhoods, in the local areas, and any income they bring in for whatever part of it brings in sales tax would only benefit the village. I've heard talk of possible traffic problems on 98th Street. Well, there are problems already. We have gravel trucks that fly through it to avoid the signal at 83 in Wilmot Road. People with sports cars or whatever they're driving that like the hot rod, through it, or cycles in the nicer weather, and people that take the corner too fast off of eastbound Wilmot Road onto 98th Street. They sometimes miss and land in my front yard. That's not going to change with this. But they're having their own parking lot. If the expansion is allowed, they would have plenty of off-road parking for that. An experiment they conducted over the summer showed no increase in traffic that we saw. I mean, obviously they were there because we know that they got people coming over to check out their property and what they were trying to accomplish there, but it didn't affect the local traffic at all. And there's very little, if any, residential driveways on that lot. There's a couple of farm ones. Even though my address is Wilmot Road, my driveway is, well, I have two driveways, one on 98th, one on Wilmot Road. And then there's a couple more residences further west, but nothing right there that people coming and going from their property would interfere with, at least in my opinion. So again, I'm just totally in favor of that project going through for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean Hinsman, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Dean Hinsman, 10103, 278th Avenue, Camp Lake. Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, Dean.
And welcome our new administrator. Who is Dean Hinsman and what is my interest in the village? Number one, it is not for any financial gain or hidden motive. During the last 25 years here in Salem, I have volunteered and served on numerous town committees, village committees as well. Served 13 years at the Camp and Center Lake Rehabilitation District Board, where I attended 93 consecutive meetings. I was a member of the town ad hoc committee that was instrumental in perpetuating the development of our community park on 256. I, along with Dennis and Doug Hughes, town planning and zoning chairman and Center Lake resident, initiated the plan to apply for and successfully receive over a $500,000 grant from the state to help bring our community back to fruition, our community park to fruition. I have worked with all three admins and plan on working with Mike Fast. I'm very proud of this village. In fact, my truck even has Camp Lake license plates. The friends I have made here are actually have names other than anonymous. They know without asking, I'll hold their beer, but I'll never carry their water. I'm a huge supporter of the First Amendment. The decorum I have witnessed over the last year, both online and in person at village meetings, is disgraceful. Name calling when signing in to speak, arguing with board members by the front door, constant talking during meetings, hand puppets on video screens, and attempted press intimidation, to name a few. Currently, the village has on its books Code 158 relating to conduct and decorum at public meetings. It applies equally to all those in attendance, both citizens and press. Although the current framework is good, I am calling on this board and council to review and revise how actions can be taken against those that take away from those wanting to listen. I propose a 3-strike rule, warning, removal, and some form of request by the offender to be allowed to attend further meetings. This in no way is to be considered a ban. Also, according to Wisconsin law, open meetings law, the board has the legal authority to manage where the press may operate during the course of a meeting to minimize further attempted intimidation. Please motion, second, and vote to allow this review to proceed. And once again, thank you all for your service to this great community. Your efforts do not go unnoticed.
Thank you. Okay, we will go into president's comments. We will be opening up and seeking applications for all board and commission appointments with the terms ending in April of 2026. Applications will be due on March 13th with appointments made on April 21st. Anyone who is up for reappointment will need to fill out an application and get that to the clerk by March 13th. We will be sending out an email as well as asking this to be posted on various online sources. The application will be able to be downloaded online to and that's really all I have today. Sorry. Okay. So number 8, presentations and communications, discussion and possible action on the following. 8.1. I'd like to welcome the new Riverview Grade School Administrator, Chris Trottier.
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Chris Trottier. I currently serve as the Riverview or Silver Lake Joint 1 District Administrator. I just started November 5th. Previously, I served as a high school principal for 16 years, both at Wilmot and at Elkhorn. And I want to talk a little bit about my last 5 years, which I served as a Director of Strategic Partnerships for the Elkhorn School District. I'm not coming up here to give me my resume, but I just want to highlight some opportunities in talking with Bill and want to get more involved because I've witnessed firsthand in my unique role when I was the last 5 years of being heavily engaged in economic development, local municipalities, and connecting all of the organizations to schools. And I think what I've really found is when, in my experience, when everybody comes together, we can really do a lot of great things and uplift the community. So just a couple highlights, and one, just let me just highlight one example that I was fortunate enough to learn about when I first got hired was our recent hiring of our school resource officer, which was supported here, and he started on Monday, and that's going well. So, yeah, when I was at Elkhorn, we had a lot of success in engaging students in employment opportunities. You know, all of us have heard, you know, my favorite question that I've ever had to respond to was, do schools still teach the trades? And we really addressed that swiftly. And after serving as a high school principal, I moved in this director position for 5 years. And my number one job was just to engage employers, economic development, professional organizations, and local municipalities. And I spent about 80% of my day in that time. in those spaces. And it ranged from M7 and the Metro Milwaukee Area Chamber to Waukesha County Business Alliance to WACITA, the Economic Development Alliance for Walworth County, to numerous chambers. And throughout those experiences, had a lot of really unique opportunities that came together just through our interactions and our willingness to kind of come together and not only give students opportunities, but really lift up a community. I'm going to highlight a couple right now. And in the end, my whole goal is just to allow me and maybe other district administrators and superintendents to get more involved with either the local chamber or the local municipalities on issues that could impact kids and our communities. I'll give you a couple examples, and then I'll open it up for any questions. But one example, I was fortunate enough to be a part of our Elkhorn Youth Build. And as a part of that process, I was a member of the Walworth County Health Improvement Plan, developed some strong relationships there. Through there, I started to network with local employers, builders. I spoke at the Walworth County Affordable Housing Summits. And from there, we found opportunities where our kids could actually start working collaboratively with Habitat for Humanity to start building their homes. And we built 3 of their homes. We built one on our own, but in our conversations through the CHIPS meetings, we start to develop relationship with local attorneys, and got a call one time from Bloomfield Township's attorney. Make a long story short, we negotiated a deal. Habitat for Humanity bought one of their lots. Our kids then built the home in collaboration with Habitat. Everybody, it allowed for workforce housing, a family of 5 to move in and really take a property that was just sitting idle and kind of dilapidated to now a refreshed brand new home. That didn't stop there. We now currently we set up an agreement with the Walworth County Housing Authority, where our Habitat for Humanity and our Youth Build kids are building remodeling a commercial and residential space in Elkhorn. And I think a lot of that, that example just shows some opportunities where now our kids are entering into the trades. Many of those kids were kids who came from poverty, who some of them had learning disabilities, and some of them just needed an opportunity to maybe break that cycle of poverty in their family. But really, in the end, they got skills, credentials, and became workforce ready immediately. And that those relationships really were the foundation for those opportunities. And I think another opportunity was in our district, one of the county economic drivers is manufacturing in Walworth County. And of the 19 youth apprentices that served in manufacturing in Walworth County, 18 of them came from Elkhorn. And we launched a program called Craftsmen with Character that was supported by the U.S. Navy fleet and other manufacturers and went nationwide. And we had over 8 kids in partnership with Delavan Darien School District learn and explore the manufacturing trade. Now, I just checked in to make sure it's still going well in my absence. And they went from 8 kids now up to 12, and we doubled the number of employers who are involved in that. So it's really just about kids getting opportunities. And then finally, I think, sitting on economic development groups, like whether it was the Elkhorn Chamber or the Elkhorn Economic Development Group, or any of them, just sitting there having conversations on how some of these projects that you're talking about right now, whether it's a TIF, being supported by a TIF or whatever, or any other mechanism, really impact schools. And so in the end, I just wanted to come here, introduce myself, put a face to the name, and also just say, if you have any opportunities where I can get involved and even share some of my limited experiences, but be a part of enhancing the fabric of the community and helping kids and helping local businesses, please do not hesitate to reach out. Any questions? Okay.
Not at the moment.
All right.
No, but
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
And welcome. Okay. Number 9, administration, discussion and possible action on the following items. 9.1, introduction of Michael Kostiuk, administrator. Welcome.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me all right? Appreciate everyone's time tonight. My name is Mike Kostrick. A lot of you have probably seen my picture everywhere. So I want to just formally invite everyone to speak with me as soon as possible or whenever you have time. Come from International Falls, Minnesota, population of about 6,000 people. Demographic very similar to Salem Lakes. One of the reasons I chose Salem Lakes as a exciting career opportunity. From what I gather in speaking with a lot of you is that you value your identity as a small community. And I do as well. I want you all to know that as a public servant, where my passion lies, that I serve all of you. So I need to find out what your priorities are as a community. And we're going to work together to make this a even better place to live for everyone. All right. So feel free to come and speak with me whenever you want. I have an open door policy, although it has been pretty busy the past 2 days. But yeah, I'm open for anything anyone wants to talk about. I'm very new to this role, so we're going to learn together. And I asked to address all of you as well as the board, because I think it's important that you all get to see the front of my face rather than the back of my head at the podium. So.
And can you just tell us a little bit of your background and what sort of skill sets you think you could bring to this position? Some people here probably may not have heard of you,
I
prior
assume most
prior
of
to
you
now.
haven't heard of me, yeah, so thank you. So yeah, I was a police officer for almost 20 years. During that time, I served in nearly every rank in our police department, with the last 5 years as police chief. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration. But just as importantly, I've learned through my interactions with the public that any successful venture with public service is only as good as your communication with the public itself. We can't lose sight of the fact that we work for all of you. And I found when those communications lack is when you start to see a lack of trust with the community. So what I built and I think my skill set is being a transparent, accountable leader within any organization. I'm going to strive to bring the same to this administration. So if anyone has any questions on how or information you need, I'm available. But yeah, I don't have a lot more to add. I will add that the last time I sat this close to an attorney, I was in court. So I think this will be a better relationship though. Yes.
All right, great. Thank you. And welcome, Mike. And I'm
Thanks.
just going to give you a round of applause because we're excited to have you. Okay. And I'll just ask if everybody can go slow on him, at least for the first month, so that he can get to know the lay of the land.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right, we'll go into 9.2, review of past activities and performance of the Economic Development Committee. So the Economic Development Committee was created, I want to say at the end of January last year. And this is just a touch base to see how things are going, what the board perspective is, and just kind of talk about it. So I will open up the floor. If anybody wants to add anything.
Well, I guess I'll start with they're working on a consortium with the different communities as far as the highway and paving and all that. But the thing that gets me is, they're talking in a Zoom meeting in the last meeting. They brought up the HR department, IT, code enforcement, and the permitting process. And I think they're out of their league with even bringing this up. I mean, in economic development, it basically bringing business into the village, creating jobs, whatever, but it seems that they want to review everything that we have going right now, so.
Well, isn't that the whole problem? The whole thing? They should be fielding a lot of this stuff before it even gets to us.
Not items that are village board and administration items.
Okay.
Payroll, HR, IT, staffing. I'm sure I forgot one. Not economic development item.
Ordinances.
those are village board, those are everyday items that everyday services and positions that we have here. Those are under the village board and administrators purview, not economic development. Economic development, and I will be happy to send the ordinance to anyone who wants to read about it, should be looking at things towards grants, things to add to our tax base, not to micromanage certain aspects of this village that are office under the village board decisions and administrator decisions. And if I'm wrong, Jay or Ramsey, please chime in.
I'll jump in. I'll let Ramsey speak to the legalities of it, but from my experience, I think where some of the overbroad conversations that might have taken place the last few months have been in regards to the innovation grant, and the economic development committee has really dug into the innovation grant opportunities, and I'll maybe just share a little bit about that if that's cool, President Bucher. Okay, that some of the audience might not know, but the state has afforded $300 million for innovation within local government. And what they really mean by that is consolidation or sharing of resources, sharing of services that are currently provided by a municipality or several municipalities with each other, or contracting out a service that you currently provide with another entity, or in some instances, even a private entity could qualify the village for an innovation grant. I think as part of the EDC's desire to secure those funds, they have looked in some areas that maybe are not the true economic development purview, as the president mentioned. Things like staffing and HR and IT. Those are potential grant opportunities through the innovation grant, but I don't disagree. I think they are outside of the economic development. I have been a part of some of the meetings for the road consortium, and I applaud the work that they've done. Now, I know that it's come with what's first, the public meetings or the village board acceptance and understanding of all of the details of that. And I'm confident that you'll work through that. I think the opportunity to collaborate and work cooperatively with neighboring municipalities is possible and laudable to share services and work together where possible, and where maintaining your own identity still qualifies in the village. And I know a lot about the grant. I think it can qualify for a potential grant opportunity as well. I can try to answer any questions that you might have regarding the grant, but I'll let Ramsey speak to the more legality piece of whether or not the EDC has authority over some of the topics that you guys talked about.
I guess I just want to jump in here. I think that, and sorry, Ramsey, but I think that it's kind of like a crossing of wires that maybe might have been what happened, because anybody who was here for the Economic Development Committee meeting tonight, the agenda item number 6.1 was specifically stated to be complete discussion on Wisconsin Innovation Grant and allowable services under that program in order to make recommendations to the village board, like literally the exact thing that happened. And so it's when it comes to the word authority, it's been clear from the beginning that the Economic Development Committee doesn't have any authority other than advisory, as in, like, here's a suggestion that we've looked at. Our time spent on the Economic Development Committee looking into the innovation grant is helpful to say, hey, just so you know, and looking at this, the recommended concepts are like this HR, IT, code enforcement, and it strictly was a recommendation that this could work if so desired. And that's all it was. So it feels a little bit like a kind of cracking a whip at the EDC. They're trying to say, hey, this is something you can look at. And that's unnecessary because it's advisory, and the board, we didn't even vote as an EDC to move any of that upward and for consideration. So I think we're kind of along the lines of looking at what the EDC has accomplished and done, and to start out with kind of a hand slap. I don't know if it's really appropriate, because it was we're getting familiar with what can fit, and then saying, hey, this also could fit. That's all it is.
I can't speak legally to the specifics of what might be on some of your minds. Let me speak broadly. The goal is good governance. And so a committee such as the Economic Development Committee is there to help the village board and provide recommendations and to basically do some of the homework because you guys have a lot on your plate. There are committees that are required by law. Zoning board, your plan commission, your fire commission are examples that are required by the state legislature to have. Your economic development committee, sometimes you'll hear communities will have like a city that might have like a mayor's ad hoc committee or some other ad hoc committee. Those are not required. They're created. They are creatures of the village board. Reference was made to authority. The Economic Development Committee has zero authority. All they can do is do homework and give reports to the village board. You alone can judge whether or not that is working or not working, because when you have different committees going on, you certainly don't want bureaucracy. You don't want slowdown. You want a level of efficiency. The ordinance that created the EDC says that it was created to advise the village board regarding local business retention and recruitment using the guidance set forth in the comprehensive plan. The committee is responsible for advancing business interests, employment opportunities, economic benefits. And it goes on to list the kinds of things that they were envisioned to do. Obviously, this is all economic development, grow businesses in the community, retain businesses in the community. Amongst the types of things that they can engage in is to identify grants to support or expand programs. So to the extent they're having discussions or want to have discussions about funds or grants that might be available from Wisconsin, that's within their ability to discuss. But the key is, again, they're to do the homework. And so are they doing it? Are they doing it efficiently? Are they making recommendations? That's only you can decide whether that is on track or not on track. There's another example, they had review zoning districts ordinances if appropriate and suggest changes where needed. So in other words, were there any zoning type features in the zoning code that are helping or not helping economic development? But let's not forget, they're not the planning commission. You know, the way our statutes work, anything that deals with land use and zoning and planning must go through the plan commission, and then to the village board. Now, if the Economic Development Committee has a great idea to increase or soften a zoning code or do something with the zoning code, they certainly can look at that a little bit. But basically, they're making a recommendation to the village board. We think we should do this with the zoning code, but then the village board is sending it back to the plan commission for review and recommendation back to the village board. So all of these committees need to understand where they fit in. They need to sort of stay in their lane. They need to work together like a good machine, because we want good governance. We want a level of efficiency. We certainly don't want more bureaucracy. So I guess I'll stop there.
So let me rephrase the question then. And not to put you on the spot, Madam President, but EDC has been in session for almost a year now, year come February. What has been done to recruit any new businesses into the village? Specifically, what has been done? I think that's the answer.
What do you think is going to get done in a year?
Yeah, I mean,
What has been done was my question, not what has been
Okay.
completed. What has been done?
Where would you think they should be?
I'm asking the question, not a question within a question.
yeah, but it's also an accusation, Bill. So
It's not an accusation, it's a question.
sure,
What has been done?
sure. So some training. The first few months was just getting our feet wet, right? And understanding what we can and cannot do. There was certainly in the beginning quite a resistance to hold us back. I think you know that intimately. So I'm not sure, but I think as much as you'd like an answer to your question, I feel also the same ability to ask one back of what are you getting at?
Well, I'm asking what has been accomplished to retain or recruit any businesses into the village? I think that's a simple question.
Sure. So it's certainly there's a wide range of things that that we can be working on as the Economic Development Committee. And Rita, feel free to jump in here at any point in time, being the chair of the Economic Development Committee. But ultimately, I'm kind of curious, what's the end game of whatever answer you get to this? I don't have a specific answer to what's specifically been done to, other than we did have an open house that the community was invited to come out and give their ideas and some things that we can bring together. We only met, so at this point, we've had 13 meetings, is that right? And so 13th being just a few hours before now. So I'm not too sure exactly other than getting started, not having existed and moving forward and figuring out what we can do. It's not just business, it's also development, housing. There's some stuff we're trying to bring to the surface regarding CABA. So I know you want to know specifically about business. It's a wide range of things, and we didn't start there.
Okay, so let's go into housing. What's been done for housing, other than what Bear came to us with?
Right. So along housing, how do you make, so you were in attendance at the EDC meeting tonight. I saw you out there. I don't know if you were
I came in
listening.
late, but yes.
Yeah, and so when it comes to housing, making housing be able to be less cumbersome through the permitting process, and I saw you watching that you were part of that, I should say witness to how we talked about could we find ways to make our permitting process easier? So that'll play into housing. There's all sorts of smaller cogs that work up to the bigger cog. But back at you, Bill, with the fervor that you've got tonight over what we've done in certain subjects, what's the end game? Let's just jump to that.
What type of housing are we talking about then? Single family, multi unit?
This is strictly like if people want to come get a permit. Be it people, be it a business, be it a corporation, what's their experience? What's the front end? How does that feel? Can we find efficiencies? Literally tonight was the first time we had papers together that we could go over to see what we could find, and some great suggestions came out of that meeting tonight for some changes that you heard your very self. So, I mean, you're kind of like picking and choosing here of throwing some questions like to try and come up with empty-handedness. I don't
You
know what
still haven't answered the question though, because
No.
now you just deferred it over to the process of permitting. When
Sure.
I asked what housing
Sure.
have you worked on?
But that's the baseline of helping make housing more available and easier to access through permitting. Maybe you're having trouble understanding that.
Oh, I don't think so. I think you're having a hard time telling the public what the EDC has done with regards to businesses coming into the village to, as you say, increase our tax base. What new subdivisions outside of what Bear has come to us with has this EDC even thought about, gone out and reached out to other developers, reached out to Bear?
Can I just interject real quick? You guys said you've met 13 times,
I was trying to think of the number.
right,
Yeah.
about a year. So do you have strategic plans and plans set up? Because it does take time to move forward. You've had
Right.
what, 13 times to 26 hours together, maybe
Right.
officially?
Right.
So I get it takes time, but are you guys working on plans? You've got specific plans in place on how you're going to approach?
So each meeting's about an hour long.
Okay.
So you could,
Only 13
you could
hours.
say 13 hours. And then in the very beginning, a lot of effort was put forth that we couldn't collaborate with each other. That was later determined. It took probably half of those number of meetings through speaking with Ramsey on to facilitate how we could potentially collaborate. So we literally only had that, what would be an hour, hour and a half long meeting. So I guess, again, I'm going to throw it to you, Angela. Maybe you could answer what Bill couldn't, is what's the end game? You're like, you want to, like, you feel disappointed by the EDC?
Thing, and I'm just asking, like, you've had 13 hours, it takes time. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just wondering, have you guys do you feel like you're making progress? The
Absolutely.
consortium, I think I said that right. Sounds like that's moving along.
Yeah.
For business to come in or homes, as Bill has asked. Do you
Sure.
feel like in the next couple of months, you guys as a group will be able to start approaching different developers? Like, yes, this is what we want, the permitting process, we know what we want subdivisions to look like, strategic plans or action plans. Do you have any of that you think you're almost complete?
So no,
Okay.
no. And to say in a couple of months is literally say in a couple of hours. of
Okay.
getting together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So also too, there was there was even a period of time that it was considered that the EDC shouldn't even be allowed to continue because we wouldn't have an actual administrator in play, if you kind of recall that. So it kind of like almost at every turn, there was a hog tying going on, and then now being put on the hot plate why we haven't performed. So I think it's inappropriate. I really do. And I'd like you to just get to your end game. What would you like to suggest that happens differently?
I'm out looking for a status update. What
Mhm.
have you done as a committee to entice businesses into the village?
So you've asked that question multiple times, and I'm
And I
telling you
still haven't gotten
that,
an answer.
and I told you that's not where we started. I did answer that.
It's not where you started.
I will say that the first months were challenging. Because we needed to figure, when you have a brand new committee, it is hard to try to figure out, especially one that is new to the village, trying to figure out how we're gonna get going, right? And we did spend the first couple of meetings on items like the survey and the public meetings that we were going to hold and when we were gonna do that. So, I mean, technically, it hasn't been a lot. I do think that as a committee, however, we do need to start producing rather than just talking.
How do you mean like producing?
We need to start producing some results rather than just talking. So, part of my job is to run the meetings. It's to put the agendas together. Putting things on the agenda just to talk and keep broadening and broadening and broadening does not help. We need to start honing in on certain things that we want to accomplish and work on those and stop adding to the plate, because that just waters everything down and we don't get results, right? But what I will not have is what happened at the December 2nd meeting when I was attacked.
Oh,
It was-
no. You interrupted me about 12
It-
times.
It was, don't talk over me. It was disrespectful.
Okay.
It was disrespectful. And the emails that I've subsequently gotten from EDC members have been disrespectful. I am not disrespectful to any one of you. Not anyone.
Please release the emails to the public.
Well, they keep getting sent to my personal email, so.
I sent them to you. I sent them all.
You
President
did.
Coker.
Yeah.
Yeah, please release them to the public and please do a FOIA on them.
I am, and always have been, in favor of the EDC. I see the value. I do. But when I ask, and it was talked about many times ahead of time, to please talk with staff, have a talk, that didn't happen. And all I did was ask a question, and that is what prompted. And it's all on there on our YouTube channel if anybody wants to watch it. Our staff is very capable. They do this every day. My point was, anytime at work that we have to start a new project, you do a little fact finding ahead of time. And I understand, as I've been told, I know very little about it. What I do know is you go to your sources first and you say, here's the idea we have. Do you have any input? That's all I wanted, a half-hour conversation. I'm trying to build trust between staff, this board, the EDC, and vice versa. I'm trying to build that.
Sure.
I'm trying. But when that doesn't happen, right? So it's no different than, at work, I'm given a project and I'm given parameters. And I know I'm not the end all be all, but I think that when you don't involve staff, it doesn't help. And I'm not saying that it won't be a successful project. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying, as I've been accused and asked, that I want to shut it down. That is not it at all. That's all. I want the EDC to start producing. I do. We have to. We have to.
Yeah.
And we had two canceled meetings last year. And in June, there was no meeting. So of the 13, we actually had 10 meetings. So I know that, perhaps there are some on this board who thought that there would be some real concrete results. It's hard because, you know, again, we spent a lot of time in the beginning trying to figure out who we are, what are we gonna do? Holding, you know, doing the surveys, doing the public session, trying to, you know, finalize the ordinance. And so respectfully, Bill, you know, we probably spent at least half of those doing those kinds of things. So I don't know necessarily that that should be held against the EDC.
Thank you.
But I do think that we need to, again, like I said, narrow the scope and keep it within the ordinance of the EDC, and so that we can be successful and we can produce results.
Can I have the floor?
You may.
Okay, you mentioned that you were attacked. I don't really want to revisit it. And then you also asked me not to talk over you. There's over 12 times you talked over me. You never let me finish a single sentence during that particular meeting. And boy, is it messy to bring this up in a village board meeting, exactly what people come to the podium and complain about. But I can tell you that if people go back and watch that video, your rendition and my rendition, somewhere in between is the truth. And I really hope we never have another day like that. Tonight's feeling a little bit like that with the attack. And ultimately, the EDC is made up of you. It's people of the community who stepped up and are trying to figure out the way forward. And maybe we didn't start out where to be ready for your questions tonight, Bill. We didn't start out at attracting businesses or housing, but listening to Ramsey and his description tonight of what's inside of our charge, we have been working within that framework, just not at the top of that list. So I guess what I'd hate to see come out of whatever this is tonight is anybody on the EDC to lose interest in serving, continued serving the community, and to see what can come out of it. EDC is what can shake out. What can we do to help the community? But an expectation, and especially like you rated yourself, Rita, the first half of our existence was all about just learning what we can and can't do, how we can communicate, what is it we should be working on, and then, you know, you set the agenda. So by all means, if the agenda needs to be narrowed to something other than where we're currently at, then I guess that lies in your hands. And so be it. But I can tell you, all the efforts are of good heart, good mind, and of best interest of the community. And I don't think tonight is really warranted where this has gone, but there you go.
I have one more comment, if I may. In support, just a quick Google search says that you can expect your first tangible results for an EDC 18 to 36 months. So maybe you need more time, which seems reasonable to me. So I think it's worth continuing, but I don't want to open a can of worms. I do agree, having watched that meeting, it was pretty ugly. There were two people on either side of her, just, it's ugly.
One thing they talk about what kind of productivity and what have they brought to light. They are a committee and they are bound by rules, and those rules are they just can't pick up the phone and talk to 2 or 3 different people. It's open meetings, problems that they would have. You know, that it when it first started and I became aware of the Economic Development Committee, I thought, boy, I like this. But then when I found out what the rules are, you can't talk to him and pass your ideas back and forth because you're regulated by these ordinances, by law. So it is at the meetings is where they get to talk about these things. And I can see why not an awful lot has happened. But the other thing that's real important in my mind is the economy. Now we're talking about a new development where the condos are going to sell for $400,000 each. The single family homes are going to be from $500,000 to $600,000. I mean, that's a small market. In my mind, we're a rural community. A lot of our citizens want to stay a rural community. We do have a partnership with with CABA, Kenosha Area Business Alliance. Those are the ones we partnered with in our business park, for example. Now, I don't know, and I'm not on this committee, but I wonder if it would be advisable and permissible to make a relationship with the Kenosha Area Business Alliance and see some of the things that they've got working on and might potentially bring to our business park where you guys could help. and girls. And that's it. Thanks.
Anything else on this item? Okay, number 10, planning and zoning, discussion and possible action on the following items. 10.1, ordinance 2026.01-107. An ordinance amending the zoning map for the Village of Salem Lakes Berwick Properties, Inc., 4011 80th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin, 53142, owner Daniel Schnapp, 4011 80th Street, Kenosha, Wisconsin, 53142, agent requesting a rezoning from R2 Suburban Single Family Residential District, PR1 Park Residential or Park Recreational District, and C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District to R2 Suburban Single Family Residential District, C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District, and PUD Planned Unit Development Overlay District on tax parcels 704-120-054-0421 and 704-120-054-0338. For informational purposes only, these parcels are located on the north side of State Highway 50, approximately 1,800 feet east of County Highway B. County Highway B, period. Is there anyone here? Should that be Bear or is it Berwick? Oh, got it. Okay. Hi, SR. Come on. Great.
Good evening, SR Mills, 4011 80th Street, Kenosha. I'm here on behalf of Berwick Properties. Appreciate the time. Dan was actually put this together and delivered the meeting or the presentation at the Plan Commission. He was double booked and just got here late, so I told him I'd handle it. Again, this evening, we're looking for a rezone and a PUD. That's kind of the first step for us before we would go to formal platting, all the engineering, wetland delineations, everything that needs to be accomplished. I'd like to also say I appreciate all the neighbors' concerns about the safety. We take that very serious and want to make sure we address as many of those that we can, and certainly have open and frank discussions about that. Put together a presentation that might be helpful too. I thought it would be a good idea just to kind of walk everybody through some of the history of this site. As noted, it was platted earlier, so there's some questions about that. What's the validity of the zoning, why it's zoned what it is today? So yeah, if you jump to the next slide. So the site location, it's on the right side of that picture there. It's 41 acres north side of Highway 50. You can see the east-west road, 248th Avenue into the existing Salem Hills subdivision. So that was a platted outlot when Salem Hills was originally done. They kept a 66-foot wide right of way there to allow access into this neighboring parcel. Next slide, please. Land use plan shows it as R2 single family estate size residential, which is what we're adhering to here. Next one, please. So this existing zoning, so the R2 suburban single family residential zoning, we have C1 Lowland Conservancy and PR1 Park Recreational District. This is a byproduct of when it was preliminarily platted, not by us, by different owners back in approximately 2008. So it's about 07, 08, so it's nearing 20 years old. So the platting here is a bit of a vestige of what was done before. So we're asking for some changes to move some things around, but predominantly it's still all that R2. Next slide, please. So this is the old preliminary plat that was approved. We can see the east-west roadway into Salem Hills on the left side there, which is 248th Avenue. And in this instance, what they did is they snuck a public road around some of the wetland features, the C1 Conservancy, and then brought it all the way down to Highway 50, brought it to the west at a pretty hard angle, and then immediately south to get to the median there. So we'll talk about that a little bit in the future, but I think it's good to look at what was planned and again, it was this design that in turn that zoning was based off of. So some of the unique features of this site, we've heard about parklands and the environmental features here.
35% of the site is designated primary environmental corridor. That's Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission has a lot of oversight on that. Sewer PAC decides what's PEC, whether it's primary or secondary. We have two large wetland complexes, one on the south side of the site, one to the further north that moves up onto the site north of ours. We have an unnamed waterway that traverses the site, kind of splits it east and west. And that 64% of the site is actually not farmable because of the woods, wetlands, and some steep slopes that we have there. So we have a very unique site. It's not easy to develop. We're trying to stay out as many of the environmental corridors, the lowlands, try and stay out of the stream area. So it has its challenges. One thing that's safe to say too is since 2007, one thing that we often see is what we call wetland creep. Those natural areas change, wetlands can expand. Sometimes they can contract, usually they don't, especially when there's housing or other development in and around it. Usually we see the wetlands and the lowland areas expand even a little bit more. Next slide, please. So this goes back to what we're proposing. Part of this is based on what we heard at some prior meetings and just trying to get a read from the board, the plan commission, the citizenry. What we're looking at here is it's 11 home sites. And the thought process is one of the home sites will actually access off of Highway 50. There's a current farm drive there, not at the median, it's further to the east, but so one would access there. And then we'd look for approximately 10 home sites that would access off of that Salem Hills right of way. So sites range from 1.64 acres to 12.7 acres, designed to preserve existing natural resources. All of the home sites to be served by private street, private well, private sewer. So this is one of the benefits of a PUD, is that it allows some flexibility where we're not using some of the traditional zoning regs where they can be a little more regimentated. We want to make sure we're not having to do a lot of site grading. We're working with the existing contours. We're impacting as little of the site as possible. It's one of the big benefits of using private well and private sewers. We're not having to jack utilities through there, rip a bunch of things up, have to regrade it all. So we think it really is a good example of how a PUD can work and be beneficial for the community, everybody else. One of the things that allows us to do too is decrease some of our infrastructure costs. So going in with a private road instead of it's 22 feet wide instead of the traditional public road that's 24 feet wide. So there's some different things that we're able to do to try and get it to balance so we don't have to be as dense. So we can, unlike the 2007, 2008 plat that had 20 single family lots, we're only showing 11 here. So we're trying to mitigate that overall impact to our neighbors at Salem Hills, to just the municipality in general. Next slide, please. Representative product. This is actually out, I believe, in Union Grove. One of these might be in Paddock Lake, just to the west. So as mentioned, at Brenner Fields, we're probably talking 500 to 600,000 for a finished home product. We're probably north of 8 here, 800 to 950. Next slide, please. Yeah, this just a real quick financial analysis where we're looking at developed homes, about $800,000, taxes of just under 11,000. So future assessed value around 8.8, best guess, generating about 120,000 a year in taxes based on our current mill rate. So conventional zoning, as mentioned, doesn't allow site development using private roads. We've had some success doing this with the reserve, just down further to the east off of 50, Duck Pond, which is off of 60th Street to the north. Private roads, we think can work well. It does shift that burden back to the HOA. So, homeowners are always going in eyes wide open. It takes the burden off of the municipality from having to maintain, repair, upkeep. We've had success. If the market changes on a dime, we might not have as much success with homeowners be willing to front that, but because of the limited number of lots, we're looking at 10 lots off of that private drive. It'll look and feel just like a public street, but again, it won't have a lot of traffic, and we think it's acceptable with the marketplace the way it is today. The PUD does allow that flexibility to design around the wetlands and the slopes. looking to rezone the some of the PR1 areas to R2 single family residential. It was discussed a little bit before. It didn't seem like a good opportunity to have a public park back here. I don't think the municipality wants to maintain a public park. Not sure what the lot size is up to 12 acres here, if there's a real benefit to have a public park. There was an earlier plan, well, the 31 lots, that references the 31 lots in Salem Hills, and then the 20 lots that was platted back in 08 on this site. Next slide, please. Some of the questions and concerns from the Plan Commission meeting: traffic flow, increasing the traffic into Salem Hills. You know, we're very thoughtful of that. Again, cutting down the number of lots, really having only 10 homes that would access from the east going to the west. I think it's reasonable. You know, it's not a 40 lot subdivision that would all be accessing there, but it is just 10 single family lots. That road responsibility, you know, as we talked about connecting to Highway 50, that would cause part of that roadway to have to be public. We experienced that off of, we did the quick trip off of Highway 83 and the culvers there. Components of that would have to go back to the public. That will likely be a DOT mandate. In trying to keep with the idea of keeping this private and minimizing as much of those improvements as we can. That's why we stayed off of Highway 50. I also have some concerns with that wetland creep. Probably won't be able to get, if we were to go off of Highway 50, get it lined up with the median, you have to go further east. And then there's a question of how much traffic's really, if you're eastbound on 50, and you've only got a right in, right out there, are you going to sneak through that subdivision earlier anyhow, or are you just going to do a UE in Highway 50? I'm not really sure, but it didn't seem like a great situation. So we're just trying to be cognizant of that. And, you know, certainly if we did put a public road through the entire site, you know, we would need more lots to have it make economic sense. I'm not sure if that's the goal here. You know, again, some of the direction we got in prior meetings was to try and minimize the number of lots, which, you know, so we're trying to minimize some of that infrastructure and keep it private as part of the deal. Next slide, please. Yeah, this again, just further reiterating, we're looking for 10 home sites to go through Salem Hills. I think it's palatable. We don't think it will overburden. Certainly construction management to make sure there's not trucks and, you know, cowboys going through there with, you know, we have to be very sensitive, kids, neighbors. You know, we want to make sure we have a very heavy hand on any of that construction traffic building those homes. But it will be pretty minimal on the site construction, just because we're trying to work within the existing topography, not putting through the utilities, et cetera. You know, to the neighbors' concerns here, you know, certainly understand where they're coming from. So we try to do a deep dive into, you know, how impactful will, whether it's a public road or a private drive, how impactful will that be to really map this off? You know, we have this 66-foot right of way, but we're talking about a 22-foot wide roadway. So we have the ability to push and pull. As we can see, our southern lot line there is closer to the house to the south. So we're able to push that road up a little bit. So, you know, we have 26 feet from the property line to the south. This is the edge of pavement, 41 feet from the Buchanan residence, 18 feet from the Hopkins property line to the north, and then 58 feet from the Hopkins residence. So we're trying to be sensitive to that, to you know, minimize the impact either way. If we could go to the next slide, we've got a section line there that shows, you can see how it's shifted a little bit to the north. You know, certainly a private drive is going to be less impactful than a public road and going through that outlot. So we like the idea of that private drive because it does minimize some of that. We would look to do some screening, some trees and things. I don't want to go over all the numbers that are here in front of you, and we can, you know, share that with anybody that wants those too. But we think we found a pretty good spot that fits where we're, again, 41 feet edge of pavement from the south, 58 feet edge of pavement to the house to the north. Next slide, please. Some of the commentary about the proximity to private wells. So the rule book, and we have it here, the DNR cut sheet on that is, you need to be 8 feet, have an 8-foot setback from a ditch to a private well. Right now, the proposed ditches are ditches 14 feet from even the property line and 6 feet from the property line. So we're well outside of that 8-foot barrier. We can, get our engineering teams out there to show everybody that we're 20, 30 feet. I don't know the exact, but we're certainly within the outside of any range of concern. Next slide, please. Yeah, and again, we haven't, this isn't fully engineered. We have work to do that, but typically just in the batting order of things, we like to get the zoning, understand the rules that we're playing by with the PUD. Then in turn, we would get our engineers out there to get everything to lay out to make sure that it fits and it works for everybody, that, the ditches work, that nobody's getting flooded out. If anything, typically when we do these, we find that we're maybe solving some existing problems. If there are some flooding issues from old grading faux pas and things like that. Next slide, please. This is just the PUD ordinance where it talks about some of that flexibility. What's highlighted there, such developments are intended to provide a safe and efficient system for pedestrian and vehicle traffic, to provide attractive recreation and open spaces as integral parts of the development, to enable economic design in the location of public and private utilities and community facilities, and to ensure adequate standards of construction and planning. The PUD overlay district under this chapter will allow for flexibility of overall development design, with benefits from such flexibility intended to be derived by both the developer and the community, while at the same time maintaining insofar as possible the land use density and other standards or use requirements set forth in the underlying basic zoning district. So again, I guess to kind of summarize it, based on the feedback that we've received from this body and others, was less lots is better. Try and minimize the impact on Salem Hills. So instead of doing a public roadway connecting all the way to 50, we know we would need more lots. So let's cut that roadway down. Let's keep it private. Let's only have 10 access into Salem Hills, 1 access off of Highway 50. We think that's a good solution. Again, certainly very sensitive to the neighbors' thoughts and concerns. We want to be good neighbors. We want to make sure that everybody's abiding by the rules and we have a good plan moving forward. But again, appreciative of your time and of your thoughts, and here to answer any questions you might have.
When you say that it's a private, similar to the reserve and the duck pond, now those are gated. Is this going to be gated?
No, the thought is that this wouldn't be gated. Just because those are coming off of public roadways, that I don't think here it would be really appropriate.
My next question is there any way that the construction equipment can come off of Highway 50 when you're doing all the topographical grading and all that kind of stuff? Because the concerns that I heard was all this heavy equipment going down that road during construction.
Yep. Some of that's going to be dictated to by the environmental study that we have to, we can't do it out right now. We've got snow and it's freezing temperatures, but in the spring, I think from a site work standpoint, the majority of that site work, the big machines can come off of Highway 50. I think from a typical home construction, that would probably be very difficult to have a roadway that traverses all the way up. But from a site work standpoint, I think since that's certainly all within our control, we can make that happen, or at least the vast majority of it.
Cement trucks, gravel, semis coming in, lots coming in. I'm concerned about the damage of the roads, the stress. I have damage, it would be stressing.
Yeah.
You could build some sort of a temporary road. That would solve a lot of neighbor problems.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to overpromise here and underdeliver on what we can do with the way some of that environmental stuff is snaked down. Again, from a site contracting standpoint, with big graders and things, that I'm not nearly as concerned about, because we can make that happen with riprap and such. Just I do worry about the day-to-day construction, and I appreciate where you're coming from on that.
Road trucks probably problems. Cement trucks.
It's the cement trucks and
Lots.
yeah. And again, part of it too is it's as we looked at the reserve and Duck Pond, I think the reserve took us 13 years to build out. So it's not like there's going to be 10 foundations all popped in the ground at once. You know, maybe that's good and bad. Maybe people would say just get it all done and be done with it. But realistically, it'll be a 4 to 5 year build out. Even at Duck Pond, we've seen, we've had a lot of success in the sales there. I think we only have 3 of those left. With that said, construction is 1 or 2 houses at a time, and it takes some time. So it's not going to be a massive influx of construction traffic all at once. It will be over time, whether that's good or bad. I think depends on your individual thoughts.
So SR, is the access from 50 dead in your eyes?
It's dead from the standpoint of the way this plan is laid out.
Even if you were to come in 50 through the larger parcel, almost similar to what the original concept was, but then connecting to where you have the cul-de-sac, which would then eliminate a cul-de-sac.
When you look at that roadway, and we can maybe even pull that back up, it's about 7 slides into the deck there. You know, we would have to sneak that all the way back down. So if that cul-de-sac essentially just continued down to the south, we could do that. Potentially, I don't know what the economics would look like for the additional number of lots that we would need.
And all we're doing is ask.
Yep.
Can you look into it?
We can certainly look into that. Yeah. I mean, my gut says it's going to be hard to get that to work. And I don't know with the component that needs to be then published, because we're coming off a state highway, how exactly that will affect things. Certainly we can look into that though.
And to be honest with you, when you talk about people coming out of 50, trying to get to the eastbound side of 50, if you're only talking 11 homes, how many people are we talking?
Well, we know that if we connect it all the way down to 50, the home sites would go up. So let's say like in the 2008 plat, they're showing 20 home sites.
Okay.
So the number of home sites would go up. Now, I don't know if you take an equidistance on that road and you say, half the people are going to go west through Salem Hills and the other are going to go south because they don't want to do that UE. I just don't know the answer to that. I mean, no, like the reserve, if you're going eastbound, you have to go out, do a UE, and that's just the way you do it. But if you had the opportunity to connect through and get to a lighted intersection,
right,
maybe you go through the intersection.
And even if you went up in homes, like you're suggesting, so that it's economical for Bear to put that access in off of 50, I think you would gain much, much more support, not only from a board, but from the community as well.
Not just that, you're gonna gain more lots out of it too. Back to the original, in 2007, there's 51 lots.
There's 51 included, so it was 20 in the addition, and then 31 from the original.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something we can certainly look at. Again, I think it's going to be tough to have to make economic sense. We can certainly do that. Part of the reason we presented what we're showing here is based on the feedback that we, had received of minimize it as much as you can.
But we did also talk about 50 back then, access off of 50.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Brad and Andy. This is only up for rezoning, so for the public's benefit, can you walk through the process of this parcel on what the steps are?
Sure. So here they're asking for a change in the rezone in regards specifically to the PR1 and then the PUD that would allow for a private road. Once that takes place, as SR had indicated, is that then they're going to go to work to start putting together everything that's needed to be able to submit a preliminary plat. And with that, they're going to need to work on stormwater. And so with that, there's a lot of engineering. There's a lot of engineering in regards to putting the plat together. The stormwater gets sent to the village engineer for review and comment. And then there'll be at some point an application will be made to go before the plan commission to submit that preliminary plat with the engineering, probably preliminary engineering at least. And then the plan commission would be able to make a motion to either move it on or not and provide a recommendation to the board.
That has a public hearing to that?
Public hearing at the plan commission, correct. And then that gets put onto the board. The board hears it just like this. And then the next step after that, if it were to be approved, is then they go to a final plat. So they take the preliminary plat and they finalize it all up. If there's any issues that were still hanging out there with stormwater, all those things get handled. It comes back to the plan commission for another public hearing, and then a recommendation is made to the village board.
Okay. Can we go back to the slide that shows the road?
Sure.
And I guess my next question would be, and the fire chief's not here, but maybe you do know this, or maybe someone here knows this,
I don't think it's been.
how wide the road should be for fire access. And since this is really going to be the only entry point to 11, 10 homes. What happens when, kind of like Runner Fields, when we were a little bit worried that, it only had one entrance in and out, right? And then you said that there was a fire entrance. So I'm concerned about that. But I guess when I'm looking at the road, does anyone know what the width for fire?
No, but you gotta keep in
Vehicles.
mind too, that when you start shuttling water tankers, Billy, you're gonna have them coming and going
Correct.
both ways,
That's what I
almost simultaneously in some cases.
Because there's not going to be hydrants back there, so it will have to come in on
Well, it would
with
take
tankers.
line all the way.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't know offhand, Dan, if you know,
So
but 850.
Yeah, they got holes on back of trucks. They run a line from the road. They wouldn't take the
284.
tankers back unless it was a very small
Okay.
fire.
So that's how what if it was a large fire?
Well, then they would run a hose from the road
Oh, okay.
all the way down.
Yeah,
So
they
that's
can't-
not going to be an issue? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I don't think so.
I think that's for the fire chief to make that
Yep.
final call.
Yeah.
Right. They'd have to go through it. But I mean,
Yeah.
we do that with subdivisions now.
Okay.
So the width of the proposed road is 22?
Yeah, it's as per ordinance for a,
Right, and so, again, not that this isn't set in stone, but what comes up quickly on a search is that the minimum would actually be 20, so you exceed the minimum.
Yeah.
But just answer that question.
I also was concerned about the one entryway, but then I look at Salem Hills and they only have one entry.
Oh, do they? Okay.
I say my big problem is the construction traffic and damage to the roads and stress on.
Yeah. So we had talked in the last meeting that would be part of a developer's agreement, right? Which comes later, right? Is that, okay. So then, for that road, when it's constructed from the edge of the pavement, how far away will it be from both houses?
I recall edge of pavement's 56 feet from the house to the north and 41 feet from the house to the south.
Was that changed after the planning and zoning meeting?
I think Dan, we shifted it. We wanted to try and find that sweet spot where,
Because I noticed there was one person that spoke in favor of this, and there was the people on both sides of that road were concerned about that road. So I wondered, and that was at the last meeting from the notes I have.
That was discussed, but I think the planning commission, distance property line for homes. We actually looked at the detail going to the finer road. Factor plantings, ditch and shoulder. We actually come up with greater distance.
Okay, so that answered some of their concerns, is what you're saying. I mean, they may not be totally happy, but you've adjusted it, right?
Sure, we've taken the 22-foot road is not within 66 feet. Or to balance out this.
yeah, because the southern home is closer to our property, to that outlot property line. So we had the ability to shift that up.
Move it over, the one on the south side was closer.
Yeah.
I know they were here once before. And voiced their concern.
Yep.
about that.
Thanks, yeah.
Well, planning and zoning recommended to proceed with at least the changes here. And as Andy said, then there's a lot more hoops they would have to jump through after this stage.
And
And
we could still explore the going down to 50 and as part of this process, I think, knowing that we can do a private road gives us the flexibility to be able to at least factor that into the equation here, that we can get around some of the contours and do some things with that PUD. And then that R2 zoning is essentially, accommodates whether it's a more detailed plan with more lots, it's still that same R2 zoning. We're not looking to deviate from that.
Right.
So I don't think approval tonight really,
It doesn't seal the deal because you still have.
yeah, we still have a preliminary
lots of
plat to go
things
through.
go
It's not a done deal.
Far from it. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'm sorry, who had the first?
Me.
And so just for the audience's sake, even if this passes by this vote, does not mean that that is an automatic yes to the development. That could still get, right. So, all right, so we have a first and a second. Is there any other questions or comments on this? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uh, we can't, I'm sorry, that's only during public comments or public hearing. 10.2 ordinance 2026.01-108, an ordinance amending the zoning map for the Village of Salem Lakes, Salem Orchard Farm LLC, 387 Bell Fort Drive, Lake Bluff, Illinois, 60044, owner Robert and Jenny Kelch, 22381 98th Street, Salem Lakes, Wisconsin, 53168, agent, requesting a rezoning from A2 General Agricultural District to A2 General Agricultural District, and A3 Agricultural Related Manufacturing, Warehousing and Marketing District on tax parcel 704-120 244-0120. For informational purposes only, this parcel is a triangle parcel south of 98th Street at the intersection with County Highway C.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Check. Good girl.
Who did you get, Sarah?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can we double check the, can we double check the tax ID? The tax ID is correct? Great. Okay. All right, does anyone have anything to add to this? Is there Salem Orchard Farm here, or does staff have anything?
Have anything to add, although the petitioners are here, if you have any questions or would like to
Okay.
bring anything
Does the board have
specific.
any questions? No?
No.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, anyone opposed? 10.3 Salem Orchard Farm LLC, 387 Belfort Drive, Lake Bluff, Illinois, 60044, owner Robert and Jenny Kelch, 22381 98th Street, Salem Lakes, Wisconsin, 53168. Agent requesting a conditional use permit for retail sales in the A3 agricultural related manufacturing, warehousing and marketing district on tax parcel 704-120 244-0120. For informational purposes only, this parcel is south of 98th Street at the intersection with County Highway C.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Are there any questions, comments, or staff input? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.4 ordinance 2026.01-109. An ordinance adopting an amendment to the land use plan maps for the Village of Salem Lakes, maps 23, 24, and 25, Village of Salem Lakes, 9814 Antioch Road, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168, owner, requesting an amendment to the adopted land use plan maps for the Village of Salem Lakes, maps 23, 24, and 25, from institutional to community business on tax parcel 704-120-172-3006. For informational purposes only, this parcel is located at the intersection of First Street and Lake Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second it.
So I have Brooks and Hopkins.
Give it to Ronnie.
Who'd you get? Ronnie? We'll give it to Ronnie. Yeah. All right. Is there anything to add to this? No. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.5 ordinance 2026.01-110, an ordinance amending the zoning map for the Village of Salem Lakes, 9814 and Antioch Road, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168 owner, requesting a rezoning from I1 institutional district to B2 community business district on tax parcel 704-120-172-3006.
I'll make a motion to approve based on the unanimous recommendation of planning and zoning.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 10.6 memorandum of understanding and TID timeline, Brenner Fields.
Good evening again, SR Mills, Bear Development, 4011 80th Street, Kenosha. We've got a couple of slides. So thought about being here again. So shortly after the last time we discussed the TID was to try and put some numbers together. And there was a couple of lingering questions that the board had and others had. So we've spent some time diving into those. And yeah, this is a good one to start with here. I apologize for you not being able to see it, but I can distribute some copies of this later. So maybe I'll just start at the top with some of the, at least the questions that I remember board having, and we can get into some of the answers. So the proposed TID district that we talked about really comprised of 3 parcels. The top parcel, which is the subject parcel that we're looking to develop, 34.95 acres. The one immediately to the south, that is currently the land use plan on that is a business industrial of 46.6 acres. And then parcels currently owned by the school right now further south, 61.2 acres. So one of the questions is, well, what happens if on that parcel listed as number 2, we choose to develop it as residential at some point and not have it as business or commercial? Are they going to be stuck? Are they going to be pigeonholed into having to be business commercial, and maybe there's no market for that, et cetera? So I spent some time working with Ellers and Associates, who when you're consultants, again, they know these rules very, very well. And so we think we do, but we always try and double check with them. So one of the rules is you can have no more than 35% of an overall development be newly platted residential. That newly platted, though, what it does is it takes out the outlots, stormwater, roadways to get your percentages. So when you add, if we said, with ours, it's very easy because we have a hypothetical layout. So we're able to pull out the roadways, the outlots, the commercial component on the corner to get to what our percentages are. So when doing that, of our 34.95 acres, approximately 17.38 are actually considered newly platted residential. So if we take roughly the same ratio to the number 2 parcel, even though it's 46.6 acres, that would equate to 23.3 acres of newly platted residential. When you add those 2 percentages together, that gets to 28%. So the threshold is 35. So there's still room if they were really efficient and or had much larger lots or what have you. We're still well within the tolerance that all of that parcel could likely go residential, and you still wouldn't cap out on that 35%. So that was one of the questions asked of us, and we wanted to make sure we had a good answer on that, so they wouldn't be pigeonholed if for some reason residential is the way they want to go at some point. The other rule is you have to have at least 50% of the TID district be developable. We don't have a problem in meeting that either. So because of the way it's laid out, I think there's you could probably say 100% of it, or maybe 80%, because you do have some wetlands in the bottom, is developable. The reason that rule's on the state books is they don't want a single development going in, and then you encompass a lot of wetlands, and you say, okay, well, we achieved the 35%, but you've got 100 acres of wetlands that you couldn't develop anyhow. So you're really skirting the rules. So that's not what is going on here. Ellers agrees with that, and they'll do their deep findings, but I at least wanted to get the board some of our thoughts on it to know that we're in compliance and we're not on a fool's errand here of not being able to accomplish what we're trying to do. All right, feel free to pepper me with any questions you might have as we go.
And the owner of the second property, are they in agreement to be part of this or do they need to be? Do they know?
They don't need to be. With that said, we want to be respectful. We haven't reached out to them. I believe Jay did try reaching out to them. We just want to make sure that they're not going to be put in harm's way here and be pigeonholed, because that's not being very neighborly. So we want to make sure that they've got all the flexibility to develop that parcel. If they ever want to develop that parcel,
Because they could.
they can. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and then the school owns the other part, or the government industrial, that will likely not be developed into anything, or does it not matter?
It really doesn't matter. You know, I mean, there is that area to the northwest that it doesn't even really connect to the balance of the school property. Maybe they do choose to sell that off and develop it at some point. So, I mean, we could see that happening, but either way, there's lots of flexibility. So it's just one example of a way that the TID district could be put together, adhere to all the rules and to work.
Learning lots of new stuff.
But you can't do anything unless all of that is included. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. That whole area would need to be included because it's like a, you know, numerator denominator thing. You have to have 35, no more than 35% newly platted residential. So we do need the total of 142 acres is what that total is. So again, it doesn't have to be this way, but it's just one way that it could be. Adheres to all of the rules and regs and is actionable.
But you only own number one.
We only own number one, correct. And often, I mean, we've never done a TID district just on our property. TID districts are, you know, designed to be more encompassing. If it was the discretion of this board that we said, hey, we wanted to include other areas on, you know, State Highway 83 to provide some opportunities to redevelop. You know, we're just doing one in Caledonia. We had a large residential component, but they in turn wanted to take it up and down kind of their main drag to provide some flexibility to redevelop some of the older commercial properties there. Certainly all of that can be done. We also don't, you know, that's your decision, not ours. We don't want to be presumptive. And
Do the lots have to be adjacent?
they have to be contiguous. Now you can go across the street,
Okay.
but streets don't count, but you couldn't jump a whole parcel.
So there aren't really any other areas except to the west, which looks like it's already zoned residential that could be part of it. It seems, right?
Yeah, there's really
That
nothing,
Little triangular.
nothing to the west.
Interesting.
But certainly there's things to the east if you wanted some of the commercial
Okay.
buildings downtown. So there's plenty of flexibility there to add or subtract that.
The only comment I have is, at our last meeting, trustee, brought up, about a top lot. To keep that in mind, to have a top lot. And tonight we heard about sidewalks because people will be pushing strollers and what have you to the top lot.
Yeah.
So.
Sidewalks, curbs and gutters.
We were in the last one.
I could talk about the specific development too for a moment if you like. So the way we've envisioned this is not with curbs and gutters, but it is with a sidewalk. So if you look at what we did in Paddock Lake at Whitetail Ridge there, we do have a sidewalk on one side that's worked well. You know, so we agree that strollers on, you know, on the street, that's not real conducive. So at least on one side of the road, we always wanted to have a sidewalk. And we did make a change. We do have a tot lot in there. That was kind of a mistake on our part to not include it. So I have an updated design here I'm looking at, but you'll see it when we get to that stage of it. So we have included that tot lot. One of the other items that Trustee Barr, I think you had mentioned, is talking about some of the economics of it, of, you know, how are we better off? How is it going to work? So did a really, you know, a pretty basic, but I think relatively accurate financial analysis. Because, you know, if I was in your shoes, I'm going to say, is this going to make economic sense for us from a village standpoint? So if we could blow that up a little bit. So we've made some assumptions here, like we always have to do when we're putting these pro formas together. But based on the overall analysis, you know, we think of the 114 units, we'll call it. It's 42 single family, 46 single family, 34 side by side, so 68 units, so totaling 114 units. Will create approximately 47,800,000 in tax increment or in assessed valuation, excuse me. Mill rate at 1338. So property taxes generated just under $640,000. Now, the village portion, so as we work with your consultants, Ellers, we find these, find a good split. Oftentimes it's like an 85-15 split. There's certain hurdles in there for us and safeguards. So we're not being unduly enriched as the developer, but still has to make economic sense. So we find an internal rate of return hurdle rate. We agree that, okay, if we hit this, then goes from 85-15 to a 50-50 split or something like that. And all of those nuances we can work out in the development agreement. But I think what's important is we look at this, we say, okay, let's say that this proceeds like with a similar fashion to the way we've done it in other municipalities. It's an 85-15 split. So annually, $95,000 a year would be going to the village. I think what's important to remember too is when you think of property taxes, and it changes from year to year, everybody knows that, but about 24% of that today goes to the village. The county gets their cut, the tech schools, grade schools, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not that many points off of, if there was no TID, what is the municipality, what is the village going to get? So at 24%, it's about 153,000, 15%, it's 95. Now, with that also said, the deal doesn't work without a TID. So it's, 100% of zero is also zero. But I think but I just wanted to lay this out, that there's some other benefits that aren't just on the property tax side when the development happens. It's going to be new infrastructure, warranties. So you're not going to have the same disproportionate amount of spend to keep up roadways and things like that when you look at the typical village budget of where those are going. But the annual sewer fees alone at about $728 per unit per year, it's a $82,000, almost $83,000 of annual revenue coming back into the sewer service district. I know some of that's fixed cost, some of it's variable cost, but I think a lot of it's fixed, so it should, would be good. And then a lot of the impact fees, as we look at approximately $2,000 per unit on impact fees, $5,000 for a sewer connection fee, about $2,300 for building permit fees so we're $1,060,000. Granted, that's one-time money, but it's still very real dollars to the municipality that come in. So my hope in showing you this is that, it is impactful for villages, for budgets, and it creates, and the annual property taxes received, it isn't that far off the mark from what if there was no TID there. So I think that's why we've had success in other municipalities and sharing this kind of information and going over it with them when they see it's a bit of a zero-sum game from the standpoint of, if we can't do it and lose money, we're not going to put ourselves in that situation. That's not good for the municipality or us. But when we can see that it makes economic sense for everybody, that's what we just try and do, and make sure we ask lots of questions. And you guys have really good counsel and financial consultants that have done this time and time again. So, it has to make sense for everybody. So that's, again, why we put this together.
The big difference between this TID and what we did with our business park is we borrowed the money and then we worked with CABA to develop the property. So if it doesn't pan out, we were the ones, and our citizens were the ones that were going to have to make up the difference. The difference here, as I understand it, is you guys are the ones that are, if it doesn't develop as you plan in that amount of length of time for the TID, it's on your back, and it cost our taxpayers. They're not on the hook for anything.
Yeah, that's spot on. About 10 years ago, we saw that shift where they call that the old, GO bonds, general obligation bonds. Municipalities used to front a lot of that money. Sometimes we see deals that are part GO, part MRO, but there's no general obligation. It's just the MRO. So it's a pay-go TID where if we make a big mistake, or if 08 happens again and everything stops, it's on us. And so, yeah.
Well, I think that's really important for everybody to know that that's how this particular one works. It's we're not liable.
Correct.
All right, between the property taxes generated, that's built out, correct? Is that what you're
It's built
talking
out. It's 100% built out.
about? And in village portion, we only get 95,000 back of that, right? Is that what you're showing up there?
So yeah, at the
50% of it. The rest of the other 85% goes to pay the TIF back or to,
the MRO back to our side to pay for the infrastructure.
but it's still tax dollars going into, the infrastructure.
It's tax dollars just from the area of the development. So it's not, so if for some reason, let's say, this 8515, but we don't create 47.8 million in assessed valuation, we create half of that. Well, then at the end of the day, that's all on us. It doesn't come from somewhere, the property to the south or something outside the TID. It's only the taxes that we create.
But still that money does pay. There's still tax dollars paying
Correct.
into the infrastructure. It doesn't come back to us.
15% of it does.
15%.
Yeah. Unlike today, 24% does.
But the schools don't get, none of the other people on the tax bill.
No.
We're only 18 to 24% of the tax bill that you get.
Schools ain't getting anything off the tip that we have right now.
That is correct, until it's matured.
Right.
And then after, I think it's important to point out that after the 20-year period of time for the TIF,
Then your taxes kick in,
that then,
but you still lost all that taxes.
well, you didn't lose it. You didn't have it in the
It
first
went to
place.
infrastructure.
100% of zero is still zero. That, I mean, the SR shared that, but so in order to pay for that infrastructure, yes, you have to put up some,
Right, we're paying for the infrastructure.
future residents of that development are paying for their own infrastructure. And then 20 years from now,
20 years from now, school isn't gonna get any of that taxes that 20 years come out.
100% of the taxes that are generated on the property will then come to all the taxing entities.
Once the 20, is it a 20-year plan?
Yep.
20 years, then we get the taxes.
But the
Like I say,
schools-
favor-
the
but
schools
it-
still have to give permission, like
Yeah.
it's not just our decision.
Yeah.
There's
So-
multiple schools that would have to approve, right?
Yeah, the same in Graceville, the Westosha High School,
Most,
The tech college.
the county,
Joint
PTE,
report.
they all have to fall in line.
that's not all of them. It's most of them, right?
No,
Well, the joint review board has appointees. I'm
Right.
not sure who the appointee is out here, but they would have an appointee that would essentially represent the schools. The tech college has the same, the county has the same. I believe there's usually an ad hoc citizen member. And again, we try and work with the schools because of the funding sources and how it's a little different today. We found that typically with declining enrollment, they're looking for kids. Something like this would be, we would be bringing kids to the area, to the schools. So they've traditionally have been supporters. I jotted down the name of the gentleman, Mr. Trottier. Want to make sure we talk to him too, and some of his experience. I was administrator over at Riverview to get his take and get others' takes on it. But traditionally, schools have been very supportive of late. Again, not putting words in their mouth, but we still need to have those discussions.
Can we go back to the TID district slide? And Jay, I'm gonna ask some questions. So you said we could cross the street. Right? So what if we didn't go south and we went across the street instead? Because those two on the south, I mean, I guess if we could use, expand the district, would it offer any benefit across the street?
When you say across the street, what do you mean east and take?
Panic Lake Chase Road?
No. To the
Oh, you mean to the east?
east, yeah.
And-
So can you cross 83? Yeah. Instead of going south, and what could be the potential?
Redevelopment of the existing development that's in place? Is that what your question is?
Mhm.
Yeah, you can, and SR mentioned that at the onset, that could be a part of this. You would have to take a lot of it in order to get the geography for the 35%. And redevelopment TIDs are really tough, because the base value is there. So you'd be talking about in a lot of instances to gain more increment or additional value of raising existing properties, and that does happen at times, but it's a more difficult. You don't own those properties. SR doesn't own those properties. The village doesn't. So it'd have to be a willing seller or a willing redeveloper to take those properties and to eliminate the value that's there and add additional value. Can it work in our Main Street TIDs possible? They're just really tough to work out. This kind of a TID, a greenfield TID for a residential development is way more practical. But if there's a strategic parcel or a series of parcels to grab and look at, that's certainly something that staff can look into and include in the TID.
I guess I just would like to see a second option, for that district.
And there's
Because
also,
maybe there's something we can do to help downtown Salem.
and there's also some other types of TIDs that may be a little more conducive to that. You know, you have a mixed use TID, which this is, you have your industrial TID. You have blighted TIDs too, which also have some different rules and benefits when using a blighted TID. I think it would be a hard case to say this is blighted here because we're greenfield, but if you wanted to do a standalone at some point, I believe the base level goes down to 0 automatically. So there's some benefits there too. But so I think there's lots of options. Again, Ellers is way far more astute on that than.
Originally, TIDs were for blighted areas. As I understood it, that's what they were all about to begin with, and they've got creative with other things.
Yep.
But if we were to go along with this and one of the schools said no, it's dead on arrival.
Correct.
That's it.
Yeah.
One can say no, it still goes, right? Is that what we had the last time when we had our little thing?
Yeah, the joint review board is a 5-member entity, and so if the school was against it and all the other taxing entities were for it, it could still pass. Yeah, it would need 3 votes to turn it down at the joint review board level.
I guess I was just looking at taking out that, is it government industrial and seeing if we could try to.
Purposes is the property, I think is institutional. The
Oh, okay.
institutional for the zoning in the village.
Really small.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, and this was just something that we put together as one way that it could happen. I think there's lots of flexibility based on, you know, what the village's prerogative is that could work. And I think really the last component of from where we're at tonight, we put together, and you don't have a copy of it, shared it with Jay, and I think he can circulate it afterwards, but which is just a basic term sheet that just to give some understanding of, as we talked about some of the splits, the 85-15, the hurdle rates. We've done this in other municipalities where it's just a couple of pages, but it kind of boils down some of the salient points. It's not binding, but it is just so everybody has a bit of a roadmap as to here's the general deal points, and you would lean on your council, Ellers, and others to make sure that it all works. But for us, it's also helpful because we don't want to go through all of the time, the effort. Have you guys do the same, get to the point they say, this isn't palatable. We know that the economics have to work. The plan can work, but if the economics don't, it's not going to happen. So, this is something that I would think that could get shared. The new administrator can run point on that, but then we just look for some feedback between this body and your consultants to make sure we're on the right track here.
Okay. So then for this agenda item tonight, what are we looking to do?
At the last meeting, you were looking for consensus to allow SR and his team to continue to move forward and work with staff on a potential TID creation. I think that's the same at this point. There's not an action item that's needed.
Okay, great.
Well, I'm in favor.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thanks, SR.
Clarify, because I think that they're looking for a memorandum of understanding, is that right?
That's kind of what it says. Yeah, that's what I was thinking that we should do.
Yeah, I understand you can't do it tonight, but maybe that's something that we could have considered.
Yes, so it would be a motion to direct staff and which I guess legal counsel part of that, but motion to direct staff to review the memorandum of understanding, the TID timeline, and come back to you for a rec.
That'll be my motion.
Second.
Did you write it down, Sarah? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. You are?
Thank you.
All right, number 11, clerk's office, discussion and possible action on the following items. 11.1, approval of minutes from the village board meeting held on December 16th, 2025.
I'll move to approve. I'll second.
Faber and Hopkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 11.2, approval of applications filed with the clerk for retail licenses to sell fermented malt beverages and intoxicating liquors in accordance with the provisions of chapter 125.04 of the Wisconsin state statutes, and the following with approval contingent on background check clearance, completion of beverage server class, and payment of the necessary fees.
Motion to approve.
For Kenosha County Fair. So Hopkins and Gant. Could everybody please keep it down? We're still trying to conduct a meeting. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. 11.3, Park Commission appointment due to resignation of Doug Randolph. I will make a motion to appoint Laura Frankart for the remainder of his term.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? 11.4, property maintenance extension request from Wesley Schroeder, 30615 113th Street, Wilmot.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
What are we giving him for an extension?
You have to put that in your motion. This is for paint, is it correct?
Correct. Mr.
the-
Schroeder has been very compliant with all the other requests of him. He just cannot complete this one until this
Yeah,
spring.
I think the last ones we gave till the end of,
Why don't you give him the same thing as a burn
June or
I
something.
thought it
I
was
think
isn't
he's
it?
end of June.
I thought it was
June
June
of
30.
26.
26.
Yeah. Do you want to amend your motion? Ron,
End of June.
to grant it until the end of June? Okay. And Billy, you're still second? With
Sure.
that? Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hopkins, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Money.
Okay.